Okay, so we just finished watching submissions for a walk in the park. Maybe we'll try to make those public for you guys at home. So now we're gonna move on. So we still need to see a couple of your videos, so don't forget to upload those as soon as you can, sometime before midnight tonight. But now we're moving on. We're moving on to lesson 5, which is basically making your film sound good. Okay, so you can take notes if you want. This is good stuff to know. So this is lesson 5, and it is all about audio, making your film sound good. Okay. So you've got options for microphones. You got your obvious option, which is your camera's built-in microphone. This is never ideal. Even if it's a good quality microphone, it's on the camera. And on the camera is, unless the camera's right in your face, it's not close enough. Or sometimes the camera makes noise, so you don't want to hear the camera noise through the microphone. So this is not ideal. It's never the best solution, but sometimes it's the only solution. So if you need to take a quick video, did you guys get the new OS update on your iPhones? So they have that new press and hold option right away for video. It's like Snapchat or whatever. It's yeah, which is I think going to annoy me because it comes up every time. But so if you want to take a quick video, you don't have to set up mics and do all that. And sometimes the microphone on these iPhones aren't terrible anymore, but the problem is you have to be close. Okay, so if you're doing something just you in a room, make sure the room sounds decent, or it's better if it's outside as long as it's not too noisy outside. But what bugs me more than anything, what bugs most listeners and viewers, is if you can hear the room. So you can hear the reverberation off the walls. That's never a good thing, okay? But if you go outside, the worst thing you can hear is like nature and cars driving by, okay? But if you're close enough to the camera like this, it's gonna overpower any of the ambient noises anyway. So if you ever need to do that, like a little interview outside, it's okay. Just make sure the camera's close enough.
You're stating this because of me, aren't you?
It's me, isn't it? No. Okay, so get close. If you're using the camera's built-in microphone, get close. As close as you can without making the video look bad. All right, so this lessens the background noise. Is that a word? Lessens? Lessens? It's not like lessons like lesson 5, right? Okay, so you want to reduce the camera noise. We did a BTS, you saw an episode of our BTS series. And the stuff that I got, sometimes he had a microphone on his camera, and sometimes that's the only audio that we could use. But since it was attached to his camera, every time he zoomed in, you heard this, you know, even if it was a smooth zoom, you still hear that stuff. So when they do that in like The Office, when it's like a quick zoom, like zooming in quick, they're not using the microphone on the camera, obviously, because you would hear that, because that's a really loud movement. Okay, so reduce the camera noise as much as possible. If you have to zoom with your actual camera, I mean, that's okay if you have to do that, but try to minimize that. And then try to reduce the background noise. Turn off the stinking air conditioner. That's what most people forget. If you can turn something off, unplug something, do it. Reduce background noise as much as possible. Okay? It's okay to, if you're at a location, to ask for permission. Can we turn off the refrigerator for just like 5 minutes? And most of the time they'll be accommodating like that. But a lot of times I'll forget to turn it back on, which is terrible. So what I'll do is I'll put my car keys over by the plug of the refrigerator, and then, okay, I can turn, and then where are my keys? Oh yeah, I need to plug the refrigerator back in. So reduce as much noise as you can. All right. All right. So that's if you're stuck with your camera mic. Okay. All right. Now we've got some other options here. We've got external mics. So basically, external mics, this is where you see like a boom pole operator. Okay, so you see a boom pole and operator. So I brought some of that stuff here, so let me grab that. Now this one's actually broken, the other end of this, but you probably see this. So this is I think it's a 12-footer, but this will extend a good distance. And this boom pole is actually meant to, so you can actually put a mic cable up through here. So you can plug it in there. So this screws out, unscrews, and then you can thread it all the way through, so you don't have to, like, the cord won't be in the way at all. And then this used to, when it was not broken, screw in there, and then you had your boom pole and boom mic. Now this is not a microphone. What this is a wind protector. It's called a blimp. They're about $300. So this just unscrews, and you can loosen those. This slides off, and this is where you would put your actual microphone. Okay, and so most of the time in film we use a shotgun mic. They call it a shotgun mic, which is kind of funny because it's a shotgun kind of spreads, you know, it's not an accurate gun, right? If you know about a shotgun, it's if you aim at something, like, the ammunition will spread as it gets farther. And this kind of does the same thing, but this is called a shotgun mic. It's long and narrow, but this goes here. Come on. And so basically what this is sitting on is called a shock mount. So instead of just putting it into a very rigid, hard mic clip, this is basically suspended in the air. Okay? And you don't want it to wiggle like that. It's wiggling because it's not totally tight right now. But as soon as we tighten it up, then it won't wiggle, the bottom won't wiggle. So this is suspended in the air. Do you see how it's suspended in the air like that? This part's a little off. This one's has seen better days for sure. But that way, if you hit the pole accidentally, it won't get rid of it completely, but it'll definitely minimize the vibrations going up to the microphone. So the goal is to not, if you hit this end of the pole, you'll hear it on the other end. The vibrations will travel through the pole. But once it gets up to this point, this is suspended in the air, so theoretically, it won't travel to the microphone, but sometimes it does. So that's a shotgun mic. Sometimes I'll just use this without a boom pole, and I'll just point it in the direction of the audio. Have you guys seen those in spy movies where it's like a gun, but there's a big like dish around it, and they have headphones on and they're spying on somebody? Have you seen movies like that where that? So that's what that is. That's called a super or a hypercardioid mic. Cardioid means it's directional, and there's a pattern. So a pattern, and so I can draw it for you here. A cardioid pattern. So a cardioid, it's like this. So if this is the microphone, then this is the pattern like this. Looks like a piece of broccoli, okay? So here's the microphone. This is what it's capturing. Anything outside of this little pattern, you can hear, but it's more muffled and it's not really distinct. But a hypercardioid looks like this. So a supercardioid is very directional, and it looks like this. Okay? So this is what a supercardioid looks like. It's the same kind of like broccoli type thing, except it extends and it's more narrow. The precision is a lot tighter. Okay? All right. So those are some microphones. So this is called a shotgun microphone, and it needs power. So it's a condenser microphone, which means it's going to pick up a lot more frequencies and it'll be a lot more crispy, is what I like to say. But it needs power to do so. So a typical mic cable is 3-pronged, okay? So it can send and receive signal, all right? So basically, it sends power through the mic cable, and then it sends the audio back. Okay. Yeah. Question?
Oh, not a question. More. The reason why it is 3-pronged is you can have a 2-pronged one which still receives and sends stuff. However,
it's not
if
grounded.
it's 2-pronged, it's mono, and 3-pronged is for stereo.
Yeah. So there's also a 1/4-inch cable. So it's called a TRS cable. So it stands for tip, ring, and sleeve. So there's 3 contact points, okay? So one of them is a grounding, one of them is a positive, one of them is a negative, just like most electricity. But those send signals. All right. This keeps resetting, sorry. I forget where I'm at. Okay, so external mics. So either way, no matter what mic you have, you want to point it towards your subject. There's one type of mic, it's called an omnidirectional mic. So in this mic, omnidirectional means if this is the microphone, the tip of the microphone here, then it's everywhere. So it doesn't matter where it's pointing. So a lot of lav mics are omnidirectional, okay? So that means it's not pointing at anything, it's just there. So you can talk around it, you can talk on the back side of it, the front side of it, and it's still there. Okay, now it's better to aim it anyway, but everything around that will be picked up. Okay. I'm kind of getting off topic there, but so you want to position the mic overhead. So if you are miking somebody, like a subject here, what you want to do is the boom pole needs to be right there, ideally. Okay, so if this is the camera. Okay, so here's the camera. Okay, so this needs to stay out of the shot, and it needs to be ideally about a couple feet. It doesn't have to be too much closer than 2 feet away, but basically the microphone should end up about right here. This is ideal. You guys see that? Okay, so usually this will be out of frame, depending on how your shot is framed. But most of the time you don't want a lot of headroom in a shot unless it's a really wide shot. Then you can just forget about getting good audio from that shot. So either you're kind of stuck with a lav mic, which is usually hidden, or you can do the audio afterwards. Okay, that works too. And what's that called? You got voiceover. It's also called ADR, which is automated dialogue replacement. But we'll talk about that in a second. So that's when you go into the studio after the film and redo some lines. Okay. So you want to minimize movement still, because if you do move, sometimes I'm running with the subject with the boom mic, and so you can hear the mic bounce. Okay. If you have a blimp on there, then you won't get wind. But if you're running with a microphone, it's like it's windy, right? And what does it sound like when wind goes into your microphone? It sounds like this. It's just terrible. Unless you have one of these $300 blimps, then it protects it and you can actually hear the wind, but you don't want to hear the wind when you're running. You want to hear wind when it's actually windy, because that sounds cool, but usually wind in any mic that's not protected sounds terrible, okay? So try to avoid that, but try to minimize the movement or be smooth with your movements. Sometimes I take my shoes off when I'm booming because I don't want people to hear the soles of my shoes. So if you're barefoot, then you're quieter, right? So if you ever rob a house, take your shoes off. It's easier. Don't rob a house. Don't do that. Okay? So far, so good. And the most important rule is to make sure it's out of frame. Okay, so here's what I do all the time. Is it in frame? Is it in frame? Okay, now is it in frame? Okay, then I try to stay there, and then I get tired, and the mic starts to get lower and lower. Mic, boom, boom. So I hear that a lot. As we're filming, I'll hear the director say, boom. So then I just have to raise it because it's in the shot. But to be fair, sometimes the camera is not where they said the camera was going to be, so I get stuck in the frame. Like sometimes my whole person is in the frame, and that's embarrassing. So those are external mics. Now, here's what I normally do is I will record sound separately. Now, technically, you can use these mics and go right into your camera. So in your DSLR, there's not a good way, but sometimes your camera will have an XLR input. If that's the case, then you can record directly in. But I never do that. I have a dual audio system, which means I just have to record it on another device, a field recorder, or even I bring my computer with my recording software and I record it right to the computer there. But then you just have to sync the audio afterwards. So it's two separate audio files. It's no longer connected to your video file. You know when you drag a video file into your iMovie or your editor, it comes with an audio file too, right? Well, that's if you want to use your camera mic, which you never do, unless you're using an external mic connected to your camera with good audio, then it's okay, okay? You can actually do that with an iPhone as well. I have this thing called an iRig, and it's basically an audio interface for iPhones. So you can plug good microphones into this, and then that iRig just goes into your iPhone and you can record good quality audio. That's what we used to do when we were streaming our Sunday services at church. We used to just go right into the iPhone, and we had the iPhone close, but then we didn't have to have the audio close because we connected microphones all through our system, and then that system went into the iPhone. And it only recorded mono, but that's all we needed for streaming the service. Okay. So keep it out of the frame, recording sound separately. This is what I do, and I'll show you what I have. But that's when we need our clapper, right? Our slate, our clapper board or our slate. So we have a visual and we have an audio. because what does that audio look like? It's a nice straight line that you can line up with. And we'll demonstrate that when we do more audio syncing. We'll do another example in class together as we sync audio, but you'll see the nice little line that you can just line up, okay? Exactly where, and if you're zooming in close enough, then you just have to get close, okay? So, let me show you this. This is what I use a lot. Nathan has another recorder that is 4 channels. This basically has 2. This is a nice little field recorder. You can get these for under $200. But see how it has XLR inputs, so I can connect a nice shotgun mic into this, so I can record 2 channels stereo. So if I do that, then I could still do 2 microphones at the same time, and then the microphone all the way on the left side, because it's stereo, will be microphone 1, and microphone 2 will be the right one. Okay, now there will be a little bleed into each microphone, but that's pretty normal on set. Like you'll hear subject number 2 and microphone number 1 because they're close or something. You have microphones over both subjects. I mean, you're gonna hear that, but as you're editing that afterwards, you can just choose when subject 1 is talking, we just wanna hear audio 1. When subject 2 is talking, we just want to hear audio 2. So it kind of goes back and forth in the conversation, okay? But yeah, so you can also, these are built-in microphones. I use this for a lot of ambient effects. So I'll just record with this and go around. Oh wait, let's stop. Everybody be quiet. I want to hear the birds chirping. I want to get some good nature sounds. Anyone know what that's called when you are on set and you want to just capture the sound of the environment? Do you guys know what that's called? And you could be indoors too, in a room. So that's called a room tone. Have you heard that expression? So the audio guy has to get room tone. So usually all you need is 30 seconds and then you can loop it, right? If you have 30 seconds of room tone, even if it's a dog barking, most people can't tell that it's the same dog barking every 30 seconds. And usually you're not in that scene long enough to notice or count how many times a dog barked. But you just need a few seconds and then you can loop it and then you have a nice ambient noise in the background, okay? Some people record for hours because they don't want to loop it. They want it to be all real. I'm like, don't waste your life, okay? Just get like 60 seconds. If you want to go longer, get 60 seconds or 2 minutes of the same stuff and then you can loop it, okay? But this is a device that I use a lot. For the last film, we used the Zoom F4, and then we got an extension that gave us 2 more channels, so we were able to use 6 channels at the same time, okay? There are a few more mics. I'll show you a lav. So this is every lav. These are wireless, so they basically come with the receiver, and usually there's no interference with the receivers, but this is basically our lab system, okay? So this guy will plug into like my recorder there. So this is the receiver end of it right here. So this would go by my recorder and it's going to receive whatever goes into this mic. So here's the lav, and most labs come with these little things you can put on the end of it like wind protectors. But in the film industry, we want to hide this, so we want to get rid of this whole clip system. And then basically we hide this under the clothing, and usually like right here is a great place to hide it. And then the cable goes down and around, and then this pack is hidden like either in a back pocket or just somewhere out of sight. Sometimes it just clips on the inside of your pants or whatever. It's got to be out of sight, right? Because you don't want the camera to see it, okay? And so this guy is pretty easily hidden, like right in there. But what's the problem with putting it under your clothing? Yeah, you're gonna hear the clothes rustling. So basically what I have to do is I have to create a shock mount, like what we see here, to where the clothes are not touching the mic. So I get basically 2 pieces of duct tape and I make little triangle footballs. You guys ever done that? Make little footballs. So I make little triangle footballs and I put them on either side. So it's like cushy on either side. So it's like it's suspended between the clothes and not touching the clothes. It's touching the tape, but it's not touching the clothes. So you won't hear the clothes rustle, okay? So those are some of the challenges with lav mics, but lav mics, you would think they'd be muffled because it's underneath your clothes, but it's not. You can hear a little bit of that, but in post-production, you can just EQ, or basically make it sound a little brighter. But most lav mics already come with an EQ setting where, knowing that you're gonna hide it or not put it right by your mouth, they'll make those lav mics a little bit bright on the front end. As you're capturing audio, it's already brighter than a normal mic, okay? But you can always adjust the EQ afterwards. Okay, not much more to, there's a lot more to audio, but as far as miking it and getting the right mic for the right situation, we'll talk about different types of microphones. We talked about cardioid. We're going to talk about hypercardioid a little bit. That's hypercardioid. And we can watch a little YouTube that explains that a little more. But yeah, our next assignment is going to be an audio assignment, but we're not going to get to that for a little bit. So that's about it. So we'll do the second part of this on Thursday, this audio part. Okay?